Welcome and thanks for watching. This tutorial will cover the basics of using NVIDIA's Houdini Omniverse Connector, specifically how to create, edit, and bind materials to geometry, with a brief overview of editing MDLs and existing USD files. I'm going to start with the launcher, showing the opening news page where you can find the latest news and information about Omniverse. This tutorial assumes you have some familiarity with our products. Here's a quick look at the Library tab, which shows your installed Omniverse products. At the bottom in the connectors sidebar, you can see that I already have the Houdini OV connector installed. Installation is covered in other tutorials, but you can find the connector in the Exchange tab by typing Houdini in the search field, where you have the option to install or select specific versions. I recommend working directly with the Nucleus server to get the full benefits of working in Omniverse. Go to the Nucleus tab and verify that you have a local server installed and running. Setting up a Nucleus server goes beyond the scope of this video, though it is covered in the documentation and other tutorials. There is currently an issue with creating folders on a Nucleus server from the Houdini browser that will cause Houdini to hang. I recommend setting up your directory structure beforehand. I've already created my folder, but as an example, I'll create a new test directory. Now, I'll jump over to Houdini and I'll switch to the Solaris desktop. If the Houdini connector was installed correctly, an Omniverse menu will be present just to the left of the Help menu. Since I want to save my USD files to a local Nucleus server, I'll choose the Connection submenu from the Omniverse menu and enter localhost in the pop-up. Once a connection shows up, I would select it and click the Add to Favorites button. The next time you open Houdini, this will be in your favorites list. In the Stage Editor, drop down a SideFX Create node. Then I'll dive inside and start adding some geometry. In this case, the ever-trusty pighead comes in handy. I'm going to unlock it so I can grab some values and texture paths for use a little bit later in the process. I'm also going to do a little prep work and add a name from group node where I'll preface the geometry with the name pig, so I have something to attach materials to, and then I'm going to add a normal sop. Next, I'll scale my geometry up a bit so that our scale is more realistic for use with things like subsurface scattering. I find it good practice to drop a null down at the end of the chain, labeling it out so that I can grab this path later. Jumping back up a level to our SideFX Create, I'm going to set my geometry path to World Geo Pig. I've noticed that I have a geom subset partition that I don't need, so I'll dive back into my SideFX Create node and delete the shop path that is creating it. Back in Labs, I'll drop down a material library and I'll name it. Then I'm going to jump inside. From the tab menu, I'll type Omni and see a list of standard MDLs. From there, I'll drop down an Omni Surface MDL for the skin and an Omni Glass for the eyes. You can also see that if I click on the gear icon, that the standard presets are also available to quickly get you to a specific look, and these match what we have in Create. For ease of copying parameter values, I'll tear off the parameters from the pig materials so I can quickly compare values and update them as needed in my MDL. In the beta connector, we don't currently support mapping from Houdini shading nodes to MDLs, so I'm going to do some manual copying of values and textures. The one gotcha from using the built-in test geometry is that you'll have to get the full path to the texture, which ends up being down inside the SideFX Create Pig Geo node. I'm cheating and pasting it here from another node. I'll instantiate the material library. First, I'll set the path to be Omniverse Standard at World Looks. Then, I'll autofill the materials and drag and drop the skin bits and eyes into their respective slots. Now, I'm ready to export our pig head to Create. I'll drop down an OmniUSD ROP and I'll set a couple of values to make things simple. I'll browse to my localhost and select the directory I made in the beginning of the tutorial, and I'll enter a name for my USD file. I'll select the Flatten Stage option to clear out any references and composition arcs so that I get a monolithic USD file with everything included. I'll set my default perm to world and check that the Export Textures toggle is toggled on. Finally, I'll save it to disk. Now, I'll pop over to Create and load the pighead and see what I have. I'll navigate to my exported USD file in the content browser and double-click to open it. A couple of caveats. I exported with subsurface scattering on, and real-time mode does not currently support this, so I will get what appears to be a non-textured model. There are also no lights in your scene yet either. I will scroll down and verify that subsurface scattering is toggled on. Now I'll switch to path taste rendering mode and add some lights. If you switch back to real-time mode, you can toggle subsurface scattering and see that the color textures came in just fine. Now I'm back to path trace mode, and I'll adjust the backlight so you can see some nice subsurface scattering effects. If you right click in any window and go to create materials, you can see all the presets that are also available in the MDL nodes. I'll go back over to Houdini to try out an MDL preset. I'll choose an Omnisurface MDL with a diamond preset. I'll jump back up to the material library node and assign a new diamond MDL to the pig geo. Then I'll update my USD file name and re-export. Now I'll jump back to create and load the diamond pig head. I'll drop down a distant light and throw in a plane in the scene so you can better see the effects of this MDL. I'll briefly cover the MDL edit node, which will read in any MDLs in a USD file and create equivalent MDLs that can be edited and re-exported as needed. I'll drop down a reference node and read the pig head back in and add an Omni Edit MDL node. I'll wire them up and hit the Initialize MDLs for Editing button. I can dive inside and see that I have a material library node that contains the MDLs from the file. I'll quickly change the eyes to red and re-export, then bring the new file back into Create and again add a plane and light to verify. Thanks for watching. Head to our forums at NVIDIA.com or our Discord server to ask questions and give us feedback.